Hi, Linda.
Hello, you there?
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you? Oh,
Good.
you look nice. You've got a whole party there with you.
I know. We're wine tasting in South Africa.
I'm not sure that's social distancing though.
I know. Well, this was before. All right, I'm going to try the screen share now, so hang in there.
Okay. Oh, it's recording. Do you want it to be
I
recording?
stopped the recording.
How do I, okay. Stop recording. Oh,
Oh, I might have to do it.
yeah, I think you're going to have to. I don't have a
Let
way
me
of
stop
doing
the
it.
share. Get back here. Plan to go to Kenya in October this year. So my fingers are crossed, you know, really that we'll be able to go. But it's an amazing once in a life destination. And then after you go, of course, it becomes more than once in a life destination. But it's really life changing. That's the main thing that people say when they come back, that it's life changing. And everybody expects to love the animals, but people come back loving the people. The people in Africa are just amazing, loving, giving, wonderful people. So it's an all-around fabulous place, and you can go from, you know, Michelin star restaurants to out in the bush where you can be in a 5-star glamping safari camp, or you can be camping, you know, whatever your travel style is, but you're up close and personal to the animals in a way that you've never been. And you get to see really the circle of life, how Mother Nature really has everything planned so well. And it's us that really ruin it and interfere. So it's just an amazing, amazing experience. And even in, you know, post or kind of trail end COVID-19, one of the wonderful things about Africa is you're out in the safari, you're out in the open. Safari camps are very small. There's not a lot of people. So it's really a great destination to feel secure and safe, you know, even in this interim part of COVID-19. So I am going to turn this over to the best Africa specialist in the world, my dear friend and professional business relationship, Sandy Sale of Hills of Africa. She has done the most amazing trips for my clients. Before, during, after. No request is too small, no request is too large. Her primary concern is clients having a fabulous time. Africa can be very complicated between visas and bush planes and, you know, medicines and photography and everything else. And Sandy makes it, she makes it easy, just like we do. We make travel easy. And it's just amazing. And she's got a fabulous team. Dana and Amy and Benji are just incredible. So it's the most wonderful experience you can possibly imagine. I even traveled with her this past November, and we loved it. So I'm going to turn this over to my dear friend and the most fabulous African supplier ever, Sandy Sale of Hills of Africa. You're muted, Sandy. You gotta, can you unmute yourself or hit
Oh,
your,
yes, I figured
there you
it out.
are.
Hurrah.
Okay.
So excited to be here tonight, and excited. I've got my wines. I don't know if you could see that, but tonight's all about friendship, travel, being together, tasting, hearing Warren. I want to try Ginger's food. He seems to be enjoying a lot by the looks of things. But yeah, thanks, Sandy, for having us on. And I am my namesake, same as one of my best friends, Sandy Lipkowitz, Sandy Sale, Hills of Africa. And I started the company in 2000. My husband hates me telling the story, but I really wanted to move back to Zimbabwe. And he was like, not a chance. It's not going to happen. So the very next thing, best thing I could think of was actually pretending that I lived in Africa every single day. And so that's why we started Hills of Africa. My maiden name, by the way, is Hill. So that's where Hills of Africa travel came from. And we are so fortunate to work with Sandy In fact, this past week, I actually got tears in my eyes. As I do most days, if everyone knows me, I cry a lot. But some of Sandy's clients who were in South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe in September sent the most heartwarming email to us asking for the names and email addresses of all of their guides because of, you know, the traveling situation right now. They wanted to reach out and just make sure that their friends in Africa were okay. And I think that's really a great testament to what Africa does for you. You become friends with everyone. People go to Africa for the animals. They enjoy being there with the food and the wine, and really it's the people that melt their hearts when they come back. So Sandy, we have a little video. It's very short. I know we want to keep time going, so maybe we can play the video quickly.
Yes.
Okay.
I
Okay.
just want to jump in for 1 second, Sandy. I just want to say that coastline is just, it's beautiful. It's rugged and amazing like California, but the water is turquoise blue like the Caribbean. It's just stunning.
Yeah, it's I think South Africa is a country that has everything. Cape Town has gorgeous scenery, fantastic food, some of the best restaurants in the world. I mean, Pam will talk about this a little bit, but some of the best restaurants in the world are listed in South Africa. Of course, we love our wine tasting, but some people don't like wine, so there's gin tastings and olive oil tastings and all sorts of fun experiments. I mean, we even get the kids to make chocolate whilst the adults enjoy wine tasting. So there's something for everyone. And then, of course, you've got safari regions. Some safari regions are malaria free, and then you've got Kruger and some of the more famous ones. You can combine that with Botswana game viewing, or my favorite country, Zimbabwe. I wonder why, a little bit biased, I think. And then, Victoria Falls, one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. So I think Southern Africa for first timers is absolutely incredible. But we're very excited to have my dear friend who also started the business in 2000. And like me and Sandy Lipkowitz, single business owners, and we absolutely adore and love what we do. But Pam McMoney is one of my dear friends, and she is the premier wine and food guide. I love food, so we have to make sure we got food. But Sandy Lipkowitz, I know you wanted to say something special as well about our experience with Pam, and introduce Pam a little bit.
Well, in November, I was on a trip with Sandy and several of my colleagues to South Africa and Zimbabwe. And we had a day tour with Pam in Cape Town, and it was the most amazing thing. I mean, we started out on Table Mountain, almost at the top. It wasn't completely free that day. And we stopped and got croissants at a bakery that makes any boulangerie in Paris envious. And the rest of the day, we just went from place to place to place, tasting, drinking, shopping. I even got my beautiful bangle there, and my earrings from the MoCA in Cape Town, the Museum of Contemporary Art. It's just a very urban, fabulous food, wine, art, and it's very much like San Francisco, between the weather and the fog and the ocean and the food and the wine and the creativity and the liberalism. I mean, it even has a freeway that dead ends nowhere. For those of you that lived in San Francisco for a while, when the freeway ended at Broadway, and that was the end of the freeway. I mean, they even have that in Cape Town. I mean, that's how identical. These are 2 cities that were separated when the continents moved. So I love Cape Town as much as I love San Francisco. So happy to turn this over to Pam, who's just the most amazing guide you could ever have for food and wine anywhere.
And we all have to give her a little bit of a clap, because she is dialing in from Cape Town. So it's 2 o'clock in the morning, or a little bit after 2 o'clock in the morning. So she has a few hours of drinking on us anyway.
All right, wake up, Pam.
All right, I just want to put this up on here while we're at it. Hi everybody, it's lovely to be with you guys. I started just a little bit after Sandy in 2003, and I've been focusing on private tours, so small, intimate little tours since then of the Cape region. I think Ginger would be my perfect client, so please, Ginger, if you haven't booked, please book immediately. I was hoping you'd give feedback on what you were eating. So basically, just wanted to say hi to all of you guys, and just to emphasize a couple of things about Africa. Number one, lots and lots and lots and lots of space everywhere. And even within Cape Town, it hasn't been terribly overdeveloped, and we've kept nature reserves everywhere. So anyone who's worrying about a metro experience or a mass tourism experience, we don't have over tourism, and we have a huge amount of space. So I'm going to just take you on a few slides as we, why is it not, oh no, I'm having a technical basically, the background behind me is Boschendal, which came up on Sandy's slides as well. That's the one directly behind me. And over here, the one in the red skirt is a wine estate called Del Air. So I wanted you guys to get a bit of an idea, especially if we've got any jaded Californians with us tonight, that this wine region is not just about wine. It's one of the most beautiful places ever in the whole wide world. It is huge, huge mountains. And yes, we do run non-wine wine tours for Muslim clients and keep them occupied all day. It is old, it's historic, it's filled with historical architecture. It dates back to the late 1600s, which is old for Americans. That's why I love having Americans on tour. The Europeans go, oh, that's new old wine. So it's just one of the most beautiful regions. And I'm just going to play you just a very short little video. So we looked at an old one, which is behind us. And this one is a newer one. And what do you do to compete when you've got neighbors with huge budgets? Well, you import a little cottage DIY kit from Bali. And when you don't have enough space because you become so popular, you then build another. This is an estate called Stark Condi, which is an American wine owner, American who makes wine. He's self-taught, and it's one of the most beautiful spaces in the whole wide world. So have a quick look. It's only a minute. Yeah, don't know if I'm getting the music. Perfect. So it just gives you a little bit of idea of how everyone's done a lot of contemporary stuff. So the first thing just to tell you about is we're very lucky. Our wine region is only about 45 minutes away, and Stellenbosch is one of our oldest regions. 20 minutes away is Constantia, one of the top white wine regions. So we've got a bit of something for everyone, but we've also got a great food scene, which everyone started to mention within Cape Town and within the wine restaurant, within the wine regions. Inside Cape Town itself, what I found, because we became so very, very, very famous for our fine dining restaurants, people were actually leaving my country without knowing what the cuisine is. So we do a real food tour where you actually meet some of the people and get a real idea about what are we about, who are our people, what is our history. So we combine our city region with walking all day, meeting people, chatting to people. You would think it might be very busy, but no, the city is a quiet city. It's not packed, not jammed. And so that makes it very easy to stroll and to do a little tasting and to move on and to keep walking around. Look at the backdrop of what we have at the back of our city. Table Mountain is literally the back screen of the city. And the colorful houses you're seeing there is our Muslim quarter. It's called the Boerkaap, simply meaning the Upper Cape. Then you saw this picture come up and everybody else's. This is a wonderful lady called Wardia. She has been cooking on this pavement for 20 years over here. She's put 3 kids through university with her street stand. She's there from 6 every morning, and she's busy cooking something called a koesister, which is a local Cape Malay donut.
You only get in South Africa, in the Western Cape. Nowhere else. No other provinces have this.
They're very cute. So the other thing to also know about Africa is, yeah, we're getting there with vegan and vegetarian, but it's not really part of our cuisine. It's more of the modern cooking. We're a huge red meat eating nation. And you'll see there's a sausage inside there. that sausage we call boerewors. And so this day is all about just tasting all of our local cuisines. In the bottom right-hand corner is something called a pumpkin fritter, which is comfort food in winter. We do it with cinnamon and sugar, and we eat it with the main course, not as dessert. Some of these pics came up similar with Sandy, and this is just to show you, this is 5 minutes out of the suburbs. So this is where we're really, really, really blessed, is that there will be little villages, and then there'll be endless nature reserves where no more building will be allowed. And this is our rambling day when we go rambling around the peninsula to show you the area. And basically, there's a big combo of things. This is a bit of hiking. This is great stopping for seafood. This is looking at the views, and this is understanding what we're about. And what are we about? Well, people seem to reckon that we are San Francisco 20 years ago, before things became so sophisticated and the Silicon Valley guys took over. We still got the earth mummers, the tree huggers, the hippies. We are very tolerant, very liberal, and just one of the most beautiful places. This is the community fishing harbor called Kalk Bay. And of course, that day is about penguins as well. So that's me over and out. I think it's time to start wine tasting. Thanks, guys. There's just a little taste of the Cape.
Thank you, Pam and Sandy. That was fabulous. Maybe I'll just open it up just for a few minutes. Does anyone have any specific question for Sandy or Pam that you'd like to ask?
Come on, I want lots of questions.
All right. Linda, can you unmute everybody just to see if someone wants to jump in with a quick question, and then we'll move on to our wine tasting.
Okay.
All right, you're all unmuted, so go for it. Who's ever first?
Lois.
Yeah, Sandy, a couple of people were talking about the train rides in the chat, the blue train and the Rovos.
Yes, so there's the blue train, which predominantly goes from Pretoria, which is the city closest to Johannesburg. It's really one big city now, and that goes backwards and forwards to Cape Town. And then Rovos Rail has a few additional destinations. So you can do Johannesburg to Cape Town. You can do Johannesburg up to Victoria Falls and combine them if you wanted to. It also has a Johannesburg up to Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, which is a longer journey. But yes, gorgeous, all-inclusive. Basically get on and all your food and wine is included. And they do day stops. For example, on the Johannesburg to Victoria Falls routing, they stop at various destinations, and they actually stop for a game drive in Wangi National Park. Of course, I recommend you do more than just one game drive, but that's quite different and unique. So I love both Rovos Rail and the blue train.
But Sandy, can some people get off in Zimbabwe at the Hyde, at the top of the train? And then so they can combine the train and safari.
Correct. We did that for one of your clients where they went from Johannesburg up to Victoria Falls. However, we stopped them just before Victoria Falls at the Hyde Safari Camp in Wangi National Park. They spent 4 days on safari at Wangi National Park, and then we took them onto Victoria Falls to experience Victoria Falls.
Ready to go on safari. Pamela, I have a question about how important it is. How far ahead do you need to make reservations at wineries and restaurants in Cape Town?
At the claim on that.
Pam, you're muted. You have to unmute yourself. Pam, unmute yourself.
Unmuting. Basically, wineries, not that far in advance. Most of the wineries, you don't need to have any appointments at all. Saying that, the talk at the moment, as we're going post-corona, is that a lot of the estates, to manage the number of people coming in, are going to most probably be making people make appointments. We, however, do not foresee that we're going to have a huge number of people in the next year. So I think things are going to be very quiet. Restaurants used to be, just for a couple of restaurants that you would really have to stalk and book 6 months to, in advance. Some of them you'd have to stalk when the bookings open 3 months. before. But once again, I think everybody's going to be very quiet. And it's going to be interesting time to see who survives this pandemic, because our lockdown has been very, very, very severe here. We have not been allowed to purchase alcohol since March. We've not been allowed to purchase cigarettes. So alcohol's been banned, cigarettes have been banned. Talk about stress and battering your partner. Partner battering increased.
No, Mexico the same. Mexico stopped selling alcohol. My brother was totally free.
I would say, you know, in order to get the best guide in the world for wine and food, you do need to make arrangements early. Pam is booked up.
Yes, I am booked up. But I have a fabulous team that are also amazing.
Yes.
We grew over time to being a little family of 5 of us. So 1 admin, 4 guides. None of them had been guides before, so they were all personally trained through boot camp, and they've all been with me for many, many years. So they're all equally brilliant in their own way. They all bring a certain slightly eccentrically different touch to everything that they do. And that kind of makes the whole team.
Answer it, hurry up.
Okay. Well, I don't want to, this is wonderful. And Sandy and Pam, thank you so much. Pam, thank you for staying up all night and being with us. But now I want to go over to Warren. And let's talk, now we've seen how gorgeous South Africa is. Now let's taste how delicious South Africa is. Many of you were on the call last week, so you met Warren, but for those that you haven't, I just want to introduce Warren, my dear friend and partner in crime here in putting these on, is he just has an amazing knowledge of wine and also the most unique and special wines of around the world. And it started out as a hobby, and then it became an obsession, and then finally he just had to give in and make it a business. So he specializes in wine experience and unique events and wine discoveries. He does in the San Francisco Bay Area. He does amazing wine dinners, wine pairings and dinners at fabulous restaurants. I've been to them. They're just incredible. They're the best I've ever been to. And Warren takes, just like all of us here, take a lot of time and energy in getting to know our clients and your specific tastes and your specific needs so that he can match your wine palette to the right wine internationally. So he can develop a great wine cellar for you, or just some nice drinking wines that you'd like to have and have them delivered to your house. And he makes wine easy. So I want to introduce my dear friend and companion in this, Warren Egnell of Dovan.
Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate it. It's lovely to see some familiar faces again this week after last week. Sandy, it's nice to put a face to the name after we spoke recently, and Pamela, nice to see you. I think 2 South Africans and a Zimbabwean is more than enough bloody foreigners on one call. But in any event, thank you. It's quite nostalgic watching all of those pictures and videos. My sister still lives in Cape Town. It's absolutely one of my favorite places. It's arguably, no bias here, but I think Cape Town, arguably the most beautiful city in the world, and it's a remarkable place, as many of you have said in your chats who have been there. So when Sandy said that as part of this series, one of the countries she wanted to do was South Africa, of course I would have been offended had she not picked South Africa. However, I was thinking, well, what would be a really interesting, wine in a winery? Because I grew up drinking wine from tender age of 13. As my father, we on Shabbos on Friday nights, it was no Manischewitz in our house. My father decided that Groot Constantia 1969 Cabernet was as kosher as any wine could be, and that's what we drank. So I started very, very young, and so I wanted to try and pick a winery that you most likely would not have had the opportunity to taste this wine unless you had been to South Africa and been to Babylonstoren. It's a very storied winery. It was first founded in 1692, which, as you say, Pamela, quite ironic that they call South Africa New World when the grapes there are older than some of the renowned regions in Europe. So I picked Babylon Storen because of its history, because of its rarity here in the United States. It's a very, very small production that's imported here through an importer in Atlanta. And I also then wanted to pick a couple of wines that were quite representative of what I remember growing up drinking in South Africa, and something quite familiar to many of us here in America, but also a little bit off the beaten track. So the first wine is the Chenin Blanc. I can show some photographs of Babylon Storen if you'd like to while I talk. Let me share my screen here while I let me see where. Okay. And I should have on the screen. Internet's a little bit slow, everyone in Silicon Valley and 5G. I apologize. Anyway, this is Babylon Storen loading in the background, and you know, from 1692, they had been just, you know, it was originally a farm under Simon van der Stel, and one of the most beautiful places in Cape Town, renowned gardens, Babylon Storen, obviously on the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. And in terms of the wines, you know, we'll start here with the Chenin Blanc, which I deliberately picked because we don't drink a lot of Chenin Blanc in America. But Chenin Blanc is a wine that comes from the Loire Valley. And interestingly enough, when the French Huguenots were kicked out of France during all of those wars and feudalism between Protestants and Catholics in those days, they brought the original pre-phylloxera cuttings with them. And that's one of the reasons why South African wines, you know, are so unique in the world. You know, most people don't know, but French wines are all based on American rootstock after phylloxera decimated France. So I like to tease my French friends that all their wines are actually American. But these South African wines are of original French rootstock, and Chenin Blanc from the Loire Valley is one of the world's great wines. I would argue that Chenin Blanc out of Stellenbosch is on a par, and certainly the best Chenin Blancs in the world outside of the Loire Valley. And this particular wine I find lovely, particularly at this time of the year. I don't know where most of you are, but we're going through a little bit of a heat wave here in California. I was in Palm Springs this weekend playing golf in 110-degree heat, which was quite an adventure this weekend. So we're drinking beer on the course, not wine. But this is a wine that we opened in the afternoon when we got off the course because it's fresh, it's crisp, it's lively. It's a wine that goes great with seafood, certainly, and particularly with any appetizer. What I was getting when I first smelled the wine and tasted the wine tonight was a little bit of ripe melon. And what is better than melon and prosciutto? And unfortunately, I just arrived back this afternoon, so I don't have melon and prosciutto in the fridge, but I would suggest melon and prosciutto with this wine, plus some of the recipe suggestions we saw earlier today would be terrific. Anything shellfish or just drinking it by itself, I find it a very pleasant wine, great tropical fruit notes. Which is really terrific. And so that's the Babylon Storen Chenin Blanc. So before we move on to the Nebuchadnezzar, does anyone have any comments about their experience with this particular wine and what they're getting from it? Because I'm much more interested in what you have to say about the wine than I am listening to myself drone on about what I think about the wine. I know what I think.
That's the Nebuchadnezzar one.
I love Chenin Blanc. I think it's easy to drink. It's tasty. It's just a refreshing.
Yeah, I agree, Sandy. Very refreshing wine. Lovely.
Just to pop 2 cents in there.
Cheers.
We
unmuted yourself.
Hey, we're obsessed with Chenin in South Africa. It's our most planted varietal. And also want you guys to realize that not all Chenins are created equal. They are doing it from everything from an unoaked to quite heavily oaked. So if you guys have access to Warren's store, let him take you through the whole journey, because Chenin is possibly, to me, the most exciting varietal in South Africa. And it used to be our biggest bulk wine, so it wasn't anything very special. When my mum used to go to restaurants in the 80s, they would say, would you like a glass of white or a glass of red? And when she said white, they would say, do you want dry, semi-sweet, or sweet? And they meant Chenin, Chenin, or Chenin in 3 different styles. There wasn't anything else planted pretty much until the early 90s, when we tried to start selling our wine, and we turned up overseas with just Chenin, and people went, Chenin? The world's drinking Chardonnay from California. So back to you, Warren. But it's once you discovered Chenin, it's amazing. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Chardonnay. I mean, some of the oldest Chenin Blanc vines in the world are in South Africa, but it's not a particularly popular wine in the United States. Everyone's drinking Sauvignon Blanc, also from the Loire, also very similar in characteristic, but I think the delicacy and complexity of Chenin Blanc can sometimes be more distinctive than that we get in Sauvignon Blanc. But they were ripping out these historic Chenin Blanc vines in South Africa to plant Chardonnay for the American and European market, because that was so popular. And it was really, really tragic. And some top winemakers have stepped in and tried to preserve some of these historical vineyards. But I mean, Paulette, you're a big white wine lover. I know you love the Portuguese wines from last week. What do you think of the South African wine? You'll have to unmute yourself, Paulette. I think you're still on mute there.
It's working fine, Warren, but you know what? It's so hot here today that I'm not sure I can really taste things properly.
Yeah, you are having a bit of a heat wave here.
Yeah, it's around 85 degrees, and for us, that's 110, you know? So yes, and I think it's light, but in hot weather, it must be just the perfect thing.
Yeah, I think it's a wine that goes very well in San Francisco today. Anybody else comment on the Chenin Blanc? How's it going?
I have a question. I have a question, Warren. This is Stan Topol. I live in Piedmont. I love Vouvray, which is a Loire Valley form of Chenin Blanc, but I like to age Vouvray. Would you age this South African Chenin Blanc?
I've had this particular Chenin Blanc that's had a few years of age on it, and I think it's fine. This particular Chenin is, and many and most actually, are like Sauvignon Blancs, are designed to be consumed within a year or two of bottling. On this particular one, it's a 2019, so it's just been released. It's the current release. I think it's drinking beautifully now. I think it will develop, some secondary characteristics over a year or two. But this is not a wine like a Vouvray, Sauv Blanc that I would age for many years. It's not made in that tradition. There are, however, some Chenin Blancs, both from France and from South Africa and other regions of the world, Australia, for example, where they're making them in a tradition that's a little bit more classic. And in oak, wines made in oak tend to last a little bit longer in steel tank. So I wouldn't keep this one for more than a year or two. I would suggest, Stan, that drink up, because next year they'll make more. And
yeah, I was planning to drink this.
Age your Vouvray and drink the Chenin and keep it going. Kind of like some of the Provençal rosés. You drink them right now, but if you like rosé and you want one that ages with great complexity, you buy Domaine Up. No, it's also 3 times. Those tend to be 2 to 3 times the cost generally, because of their ability to age and the sophisticated nature of the winemaking technique, the use of oak, etc. But for me, you know, I happen to love this wine. I happen to love this grape varietal. And, you know, I took a half a dozen bottles down to La Quinta this weekend, and we drank them within the first 2 days. So
Yeah, I plan to finish this within the next couple of days, so thank you.
I plan to finish mine tonight because my wife is still in La Quinta and I've got nothing else to do. So,
Well, I'm going to spend some time with the other one you gave us.
right. So let's unless anyone has another comment, I mean, let's move on to the Nebuchadnezzar. Obviously, Nebuchadnezzar was, you know, the ruler over Babylon, and that's sort of the tradition here. I don't know what your bottle says. My bottle says 15,416 of 21,940. If my math is correct, that's only about 1,800 cases of this wine made. And I'd be shocked if 50 cases make it to the United States. And approximately half of those make it to me in California. Because I discovered this wine a few years ago through the distributor, and I have to fight with him every year to not sell it to anybody else but me. And to my knowledge, I think we're one of the few, if only, purveyors of this particular Nebuchadnezzar here, certainly in Northern California. But I love this wine because, as I said, you know, growing up in South Africa, you know, there were two things we drank in terms of red wine: Shiraz, Syrah, as we call it here, was really one of the prominent grapes, again, brought by the Huguenots when they came down to South Africa. But the other one was Meritage, you know, Cabernet Sauvignon dominated Bordeaux style blends. And this is a Meritage. This is a Bordeaux blend with the traditional grapes of Cab and Merlot, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot. Usually there'd be a little bit of other blends, but this one they put Malbec in, which is interesting because most winemakers now are putting Malbec into their Bordeaux blends because it ages on a much slower timeline, like Cabernet Sauvignon, which you need in these days of global warming. So this particular wine, again, it's one of South Africa's more renowned red wines, a very small production. You know, it's got, you know, great shale soil, so the roots have to fight for moisture in it, which gives it a great essence of terroir. On the nose, it's got that great combination of dark fruit, you know, dark plums and blackberry to me, but it's also got those really traditional Bordeaux notes and Stellenbosch notes of leather and things of that nature, and the smoky, spicy, characteristic wine that I just feel beautiful. I feel it's just beautiful on the palate. I can't stop drinking. I don't know about you guys. And in South Africa, you know, it's everything is outdoors, everything's meat. I don't know what it's like today, Pamela. When I grew up in South Africa, you know, 30 years ago, South African men had the highest rate of heart disease in the world because all we did was braai, which is South African barbecue, and it was all red meat all the time, lamb and steaks, and of course, the most unhealthy thing in the whole wide world, boerewors, Afrikaans for farmer's sausage. And it's a spicy sausage that we would put on the barbecue and put in a nice roll, have a boerewors roll, and that with a wine like this that cuts through the fat, because this wine's got great acid, great balance, great essence of terroir, is one of the most joyful experiences you can have in your life. And I did notice on the chat, speaking of food, people were asking what foods they like. Well, it's not really a food. Well, it's a food in the sense that you can eat it, but it's more of a snack. And the one thing, I mean, I'm basically American now. I've been here for over 35 years. I came when I was a teenager to go to college. Except for my accent, which I only kept to make sure I could get girls, you know, the only thing that, you know, is biltong. That's like the one thing that I just cannot substitute in in America, although they are making some very, very good ones now, which is interesting. But that's so that's Nebuchadnezzar. That's a typical South African Meritage. This certainly being one of the best. And what's great about these wines, for those of you who've been to South Africa, when you can go to a 3-star Michelin restaurant and it costs you $100 rather than $750 because of the rand-dollar exchange. The beauty of these wines is they really punch above their weight in terms of value, because the Channon's under $20 and this Nebuchadnezzar's under $50, and that's including tax and delivered to your door pretty much anywhere in the country, sort of. And that's one of the great secrets and values in the wine world is South African wine. Not because it hasn't developed the reputation of being world class, like some other regions haven't quite yet developed that reputation, but people drink a lot of the wines because they're inexpensive because of lack of reputation. The only reason these wines are so competitively priced is because of the collapse of the South African currency. And so, while South Africans would love the rand to be more strong, those of us here in America get the advantage of drinking wines where the equivalent wine would be 2 or 3 times as much money. To get a wine of this caliber from Napa, I sell the comparable wines for $125 to $150. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to pick this particular winery. Its history, its story, the beauty of the property, the complexity and great character and quality of the wines. But man, what a deal. All right, that's enough from me. Anyone want to talk about the Babylonstoren? Beulah, everyone's on mute.
I have a question.
I have a question, Warren. Can you please explain the logo or the label with the smoke, whatever you call? My dad used to smoke one. The pipe and the bird and the flower. Can you explain all of that to me?
Well, I'm going to try. It's probably something I should have boned up on because it has been explained to me. But as I recall it, the flower is from the gardens. I think from what I understand, I've not personally been to Babylonstoren. I have family who've been there. The hotel, the restaurant, the food there's supposed to be extraordinary. But from what I understand, their gardens are among the most beautiful in the world. It's a working farm to this day. And so I think that the flower there is a representation of the garden. The bird, if I'm not mistaken, is a native species. I don't know what kind it is, but it's a bird that's native to the region and Stellenbosch. And in fact, Pamela probably knows the story better than I. And the cigar, if I'm not mistaken, is when the winery, as with most, like with Scotch distilleries, from 1692, I don't think it's been continually operating as a winery, but the current owners, I think back in 1990, resurrected it. And if I'm not mistaken, the cigar is the father or grandfather of the woman who resurrected it. Her father smoked a cigar. So I think that's what it's kind of it's certainly distinctive, and it's also embedded in the bottle. But I don't know, Pam, if you know more than I'm sorry, I apologize. I probably should have remembered it, but I'm so busy drinking the wine that my mad cow addled brain can't remember facts anymore. I'm sorry.
I have a question, Warren. Is this Babylonstoren, is that in the Stellenbosch region or the other winemaking region?
No, Babylonstoren is, well, they're in Stellenbosch, if I'm not mistaken, but they're drawing grape from Franschhoek and Paarl as well. But I think it's actually right underneath the Simonsberg Mountains. So Pam, where exactly is Babylonstoren? It's sort of like Stellenbosch Paarl area, right? Pam, you're on mute.
It's muted.
Sorry about that. Firstly, it's on the border between Stellenbosch and Paarl, so it's right on the edge. So they could most probably classify themselves as both sides. I don't know the exact on the logo, but the important thing to understand about the farm is it's owned by a guy called Koos Becker. And Koos Becker is like the Rupert Murdoch of media in South Africa. He owns the Sunday paper, the satellite television channels. And to get himself inspired a few years ago, he went traveling to China. He met a couple of guys starting a little startup and decided to invest in them. And that was a startup called Tencent. Tencent would go on to become the combination of Facebook, Twitter, everything in China. And the share of Naspers and Tencent would become much bigger than his entire holdings locally. His wife has always been one of South Africa's top interior designers. She launched the first interior decor magazine here. And it was a visit to France and a monastery gardens that inspired her to create this gardens over here. She was also trying to get her hubby to slow down and to move there. And so everything has been done with such beautiful consideration. This is a foodie paradise from heaven. If anyone really, really, really loves their food, this is the place to go. It is very expensive to stay there. You'd have to, take a second mortgage or have won the lottery. It is pricey, but it's so worth it because it's the type of ethos that you can pick something from the garden, take it inside with their own olive oil, with their own breads that they've done in a wood-burning oven with stone ground flour. It's foodie personified. For us who come on tours to visit and to walk in the gardens, you can pick and you can eat anything that's ripe, which I think is an amazing feeling of generosity. And the restaurant is all about abundance and about harvesting. So it's a true farm-to-table restaurant. So the other thing that's important with them is they're Afrikaans speaking. So in South Africa, there are two groups on the white population that are those that pretty much come from British origin, and the others that come from the Dutch origin, which are the older settlers. And they pretty much, everybody mixed right from the beginning, which is the biggest irony about apartheid. But Koos Becker and his wife, as Warren will tell you from the surname, clearly Afrikaans. They are very proudly Afrikaans, which is where I think their pipe is coming from. And basically to work there, you have to be Afrikaans home language. So Warren and I can't get employed at Babylon's Turin. But we can still visit. It's a very, very magical place. But it's also lovely to see people who are very proud about their culture. So Warren, if you get there, that's the best biltong in Cape Town for you on your next visit. They also have their own cows. They have everything. You have to go and spend an entire day. Don't move.
And for those of us who can't afford to stay at the hotel and eat in their restaurant, they have an amazing cookbook, which my aunt brought back for me, which we have here.
Okay, speaking of cookbooks, how about Sandy Sally's cookbook?
Fantastic.
Africa. It's a fabulous book with wonderful recipes and wonderful pictures of all kinds of properties. Really,
So,
I just bought it.
Patty, can you take your background off so we can see?
Sure. Hang on.
in the invite you got was the link to the cookbook. So if anybody is interested in purchasing the cookbook, when we send the follow-up link tomorrow, we'll send the link for the cookbook again. But Sandy is an amazing chef, and anything that she's got in the cookbook, you're going to want to eat. It's just going to be fabulous.
Yeah, sorry it's backwards, but it's tons of great recipes. Beautiful pictures of properties. Highly recommended. It's really lovely.
It took me right back to my trip. It was like, oh my gosh, I've been there.
So what do you guys think of this Nebuchadnezzar as a big full-bodied? This is a robust.
This is the best wine I've ever had from South Africa.
That's amazing.
Wow, that's
Great choice, Sandy.
yeah.
Great choice.
I told you Warren knows his wines, and he'll find things that you're not used to drinking that are so amazing. Warren is really, truly the best.
To me, it starts out really, really dry, and then there's like a sweet flavor after the first impression.
Well, that's exactly what we're looking for in a wine, Joan, is that balance between tannin and structure and power and strength, but also great notes of fruit. After all, it's grapes, right? If you can't get those essence of fruit flavors and sweetness and things out of it, it's and what a complimentary to you know, if you're a red meat eater, this wine is just kills it.
I just want to jump in for a minute. I know we're getting close to the hour, so if you have another appointment, you want to leave or whatever, we don't take it personally. You know, feel fine to leave. But for anyone who wants to stay, I think Sandy and Pam and Warren are willing to hang out for a few more questions. So I just wanted to let people know who had another commitment to feel comfortable to leave. We won't take it personally. And we will see you next week. The next week will be Monday. We'll with Australia. And I think we have Paul on the call who from Southern Crossings, who's going to give us a fabulous experience of Australia. And we'll be tasting these fabulous Australian wines. So I want to thank you all for coming, but please hang out with us for a little while longer. We're all here to answer questions about safari in South Africa, questions about food in Cape Town, questions about incredible wines in South Africa and elsewhere. So thank you again.
Wonderful job, Sandy.
Wonderful job, Sandy. Thank you.
So any questions to Sandy for South Africa?
So I want to
about
make
food, Warren about wine.
So Sandy, I want to make one comment about Cape Town that hasn't been mentioned. I was there a few years ago, and I have to say that yes, your comparison to San Francisco is completely accurate except for one thing. I think it's about 1/3 of the price of everything.
Oh, absolutely. South Africa is a bargain. It's unbelievable. I mean, you can eat, drink, shop. Yes. I mean, we feel like we've gone to, you know, and especially coming from anywhere in the US, it's a bargain. But coming from San Francisco, it's like, oh my God, this is incredible.
But you do have to watch for the intermittent power outages. I was there in 15 and it was a little bit dicey.
Well, it's been upgraded, I guess. We didn't have any issues like that.
Yeah, because we were going to go to Table Mountain and the power was out, so the cars wouldn't go up. So
what you have to do, Ginger, is do what I did when I was there, is you have to walk up Table Mountain. See, my brother-in-law is this great athlete, and he's part of this group where they try to see how many times they can run up and down Table Mountain in 6 hours.
Yeah.
But they said just walk up to the top. So my daughter and I, who was about 20 at the time, decided, okay, we're going to walk up Table Mountain. I almost died on that bloody hill. but you know, we made it up and it was strenuous, but you'd be surprised. People walk up Table Mountain every day, but I would highly recommend the cable car.
Yeah.
Well, I thought about it, but we ended up doing the hop on, hop off bus instead and went kind of around the outer burbs and stopped for somewhere and had this lunch overlooking the water, you know, at some funky, cute restaurant, you know, where they had like shark warnings, and it turned out to be a wonderful afternoon. It was just as good as going up, but it would have been.
I had clients who insisted on, you know, hiking up Table Mountain, and Sandy had an amazing, Cheryl and Lori, Sandy, and Sandy arranged for an amazing guide, and they had an amazing trip up there. When I was there, I mean, Table Mountain is where you know, it's similar to San Francisco, is you never know when you can go because the fog is on top of the mountain. So you can never really plan. You just have to luck out. And the first time I was there, every day was foggy, and then we had this one day where we could like go up, and it was amazing, taking the cable car up and the views from the top and watching people parasail after off of Lionhead Mountain and looking down to the beach. I mean, it's just incredible. The last time we were there, it never cleared up, so we weren't able to actually get up to Table Mountain. So you never really know. It's hit and miss, and you know, you just got to pray to the gods that the fog is going to lift and you'll get to see it. But it's really an amazing sight.
We call that Table Mountain, when it gets its fog over, is the tablecloth.
The tablecloth, I love that. Can you do the trick like the magician where you pull the tablecloth out from underneath?
I need to learn how to do that. Pam, we got to figure that one out.
Hey, Sandy, Can you talk a little bit about passport renewal issues and what have you heard? Somebody told me the other day you can't apply for a new passport.
Right. We had, yeah, that was in my newsletter. I mean, part of the furloughing and everything is, it's considered a non-essential service.
Wow.
So, and I have to go back and check. I mean, what happens is that if you have a trip coming up and it's like a few days before your trip and you haven't gotten it renewed, then that becomes an emergency. So I think you said in your chat that it was October.
Yeah, I'm 6 months away, but I don't know whether I should risk it and send mine in.
I wouldn't send it in now because it could get lost in who knows whose inbox. I mean, who knows who's
Yeah,
where.
yeah.
I would really wait and it's expiring in October, but do you have a trip for October?
No, I don't. So you're good for like 5 years beyond that. So it's not like
Well, I mean, you'll have I would just wait until, and I'll look into it and I'll monitor it, Ginger, and I'll let you know. But I mean, I would wait until they're going to take exceptions, or wait until, if like, for example, we have this trip to Kenya, which I am praying so much to go in October. So if anyone's passport wasn't good, then you could apply for, the kind of emergency thing that happens. But right now, I would not feel comfortable sending my passport in. And who knows where it's going to sit in some office for an undetermined amount of time. So I would just wait until, either you have a trip that you must have it for or things open up.
Okay, thanks. I was looking for a little expert hint.
Well, this is why, just as a general point of information, I always tell people to don't wait to the 6 month period. You can renew your passport at any time. We never know when we're going to have a government shutdown because there's a fight about the budget, or other things that happen, or, we have some weather disaster that causes things to be done. It's like, it's always better to be, renew it. I would say if it's a year, do it then. And then the other thing is, I would always recommend, if you like to travel a lot, request the extra pages, because they used to, years ago, you could always go in and request extra pages. They don't do that anymore. So if you run out of pages on your passport, you have to reapply for the whole thing. So I don't even think it costs more to request the larger book with the extra pages. So this way you're set. You don't have to worry that you've run out of pages, because some countries, and this is in Africa, they need 2 clean pages. They like to make their pretty stamps all over and not share a page with anybody else. And even though you might have enough space, but if you don't have 2 clear pages, you're not going to be able to go. So it's always better to order the larger book. And I really don't think it costs more, but if it does, it's an insignificant amount, and you'll be happy that you did.
Sandy, Sally, or Pamela, do you have any insight into how soon things may open in Africa? Any of the countries?
Well, I can tell you that some of the countries are opening up. Tanzania opens up 1st of June. Emirates just announced that they are beginning flights into Africa. Qatar are also just announced that they're moving in. South Africa is still on level 3 lockdown. I think we'll probably hear within the next couple of weeks what's going to be happening there. Kenya is beginning to make moves. To be honest, they can make all the moves they want. It's really dependent on our countries being allowed us to coming back in. Let's hope it all happens soon. I certainly think that we have trips planned for September, October. I have a very strong feeling that those will happen. I definitely think October, November will happen.
Fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed.
Right.
Sandy.
Jamie's in, Warren. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to jump in on what Sandy said, and I was on a webinar with IATA, and for those of you that don't know what IATA is, and I'm not sure if I have the right name, it's the International Airline Travel Association. It's the international coordinating organization for pilots, airports. When you have an airport code, it's an IATA code. When you have an airline code, it's an IATA code. And I was on a webinar because the Caribbean is starting to open, and they were talking about what they're going to be, what they're working on with airports and what they're working on with countries. And they're really looking at as much contactlessness at the airports going forward, that basically you will print your boarding pass, you'll print your luggage tags at home, you'll just drop your bags, you won't have any interaction with anybody. Going through security will be pretty contactless. Going through immigration is going to be contactless. They're in the process of working this through with all the countries so that you don't go through one country and then you get to another country and they have a different process. So they're really looking at, you know, during this interim time until we have a vaccine or a cure, making it so that you can feel comfortable. And when I get done, I'll let Warren just came back from the airport and he can tell you what that was like. But, and also, I think Sandy mentioned Emirates. I just saw a thing from Emirates. Emirates is going to be unbelievable to travel on. Their flight attendants are going to be in protective gear. Everything is, you know, sanitized down before you get there. Everything, they're going to give you kits to get on the plane. You're going to be tested in the airport. The airport's going to be like wiped down every 3 seconds. I mean, you know, the airlines are stepping up and they're doing what, you know, everything that they can to give people confidence and to know that it will be safe. And I know that a lot of people think that you get sick on the airplanes for the air, and that is just not true. The air filters in the airplanes are exactly the same as the hospitals, and they refresh the air through the air filters every 2 to 3 minutes. It's the contact part that's a problem. But if you're wearing a mask and I mean, all my clients know that before they go on a trip, I've done this for years. I've sent them Steri wipes to wipe down their personal area on the plane, just not to get influenza. I mean, I travel a lot and I've never gotten sick, knock wood on my desk here, because I always do that. And I'm not a germaphobe, but the airplane needs to have that. And so they're doing that, and they're doing all that radiation stuff. I mean, the airlines are really stepping up. So, I mean, I know we've seen some bad photos online, but you know, that United flight was stupid, but most of the flights are running empty. They're sitting you in window seats. I mean, they're really doing what they need to do. So again, it's your risk tolerance level. Some of my clients will not travel until there's a vaccine. I personally feel if the airlines are doing what they're doing and the countries are doing what they're doing, hotels are gonna, the rooms are gonna be sanitized. They're gonna give you contactless keys. You don't have to have anyone come into your room during your stay. I mean, everybody is stepping up to make this as safe as possible. And other options are, you know, if you've had a family that you like to go to away for Christmas or Thanksgiving, we can rent you a villa where it's just your own family, your own private place. You could be beachfront or anywhere you want. And when I say villa, everybody thinks about a mansion that's got 25 rooms and all that. But, you know, there's 3-bedroom condos and small houses and stuff like that. They just get classified as villas. So there's a lot of options for people who, you know, don't need to wait for the vaccine or the cure, and who are willing to travel under safe social distancing, sanitizing situations. So everybody's tolerance is different. I'm not advising anyone to do anything that's out of their comfort zone. I'm just letting people know that there are lots of options depending on how you feel and how much you want to travel and how much you trust, you know, some of these systems that are going to be in place.
And Sandy, I would say, you know, I just came back this morning from Palm Springs. I flew down there on Friday. It was only window seats sold. There was nobody in the airports. Everyone was wearing masks. All the staff were wearing gloves. I actually felt less likely to contract even the common cold, let alone any other disease, you know, flying this weekend than I have ever. And I used to get on a plane twice a week for many, many years. But there are changing rules. I just got a thing from Travel and Leisure magazine. The TSA is announcing things. I just posted on the chat. But they're going to allow you to take like 12 ounces instead of 3 ounces of hand sanitizer and things like that. But you just got to be prudent. You know, my lovely wife, Connie, whom some of you know, made me a really nice sandwich this morning. And so I had that on the plane, which saved me, you know, $475 for a hot dog at the airport. And, you know, just, you know, you be prepared and you take you be cautious. I had several pairs of gloves with me to push the cart, and I just disposed of those for my luggage. And, you know, again, I'm not going to advocate to anybody to do anything other than that which they're comfortable. But I actually enjoyed the experience. From a convenience standpoint, there's no one there when you pull up your car. There's no one in line to check in. You get on the plane lickety-split. You get off lickety-split. By the time I got to baggage control, my bag was there. And I'm actually going to recommend my daughter, whom I haven't seen in quite some time, who lives in LA, fly up this weekend to visit me, if I can persuade her mother that it's okay. She's the paranoid one. But I don't know. For me, you know, I'm ready to go. I was talking to Sandy earlier about a friend who offered me their home in the Macon in Burgundy to go and stay at. I'm like, what the hell? I'm stuck in my house here in San Francisco. I may as well be stuck in a home in Burgundy and go drink wine with a whole bunch of you know, winemakers who don't have any people coming to their wineries right now.
Yeah, and I mean, safari is an ideal
Yeah.
travel experience in these times, because when you go to these safari camps, I mean, there are very few, at least the camps that we promote, there are very few occupancy there. So, and you're out in the open and the air and everything else, and you know, you're just not in crowds of people with lots of stuff going on and easily, you know, sanitized and everything else. So again, it's totally your tolerance level, and I'm just, all I'm doing is giving options, you know, for people who, like me, are a little bit more willing to venture out or not. You know, it's out there. So if you are, I think there are ways that you can travel with enough comfort and safety, given your tolerance, and still have some travel. It's not going to be open and free. I mean, I don't think you're going to go to London. I don't think you're going to go to Paris. I don't think you're going to go to Buenos Aires. I mean, some of these places are just not ready just yet, but there are some amazing places in the Caribbean. Africa is amazing. I mean, talk about a continent that dealt with Ebola. I mean, if they know how to keep things clean and people safe, I mean, they really do. So there's just, you know, there are opportunities. Please contact us. We can discuss your needs and your levels and your level of comfort, and we can find a good match. And you know, if you're not willing to travel, that's okay too, because travel is a wonderful time. It's a vacation. It's your down trip. You're creating wonderful memories with your loved ones, and it should be stress-free. So if you're feeling stressed, it's not the time to travel. But if you're feeling stressed staying home and you want to go away and you want a villa in the Turks and Caicos right on the beachfront with your own pool and nobody next door to you, and the place is sanitized before you go in and stocked with groceries, and you don't have to see anybody, and enjoy Thanksgiving or Christmas, we can make that happen. Any other comments, questions for Sandy, for Warren, for Pam?
How about a round of applause for Sandy and her team for a great job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure having all of you.
Great
So,
choice of wine, Warren. Great choice.
so Paul, you're on the call. And Paul is going to be our person who's going to be talking about Australia next week. Paul, do you just want to say a quick hi?
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you. It started at 10 a.m. this morning, so I'm not sure if I'll be drinking wine with you next week, but we'll see. It depends how the rest of this week goes, I suppose.
I tell you, those Aussies are so soft, man. I'm telling you.
Paul, if Pam can get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can drink
Yeah.
at 10 o'clock in the morning.
You're
Paul,
probably right. You're
That's a
probably right.
wimpy response. You just need to
Yeah, if they can't drink
Okay.
wine in the morning, no wonder they can't beat us at rugby.
Right, Paul, you should have just pretended and not even said a word and thrown
Yeah,
grape.
I'll drink some cranberry juice or something like that.
Exactly.
Right,
Don't
right.
say
that
anything.
looks like wine.
Great. Well, I look forward to speaking with you all next week. It's exciting.
Awesome.
Right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for being on. And I'll just throw something out. I mean, if you've been enjoying this and this is something that you'd like us to continue, send me an email, because we can continue doing this for other destinations and other wine regions around the world. So we'd love to do it. Warren and I are having a great time doing it. And if you're enjoying this and you'd like us to continue, we can take a little break and restructure and come up with a couple more regions. And hey, why not?
Yes.
So any more
Yeah.
questions, comments from anyone before we say goodbye? Thank you all. This has been so wonderful. What's this little heart thing you do? You know, I love you all. It's been so great.
Great
It's
job.
been a lot of fun, and I really look forward to seeing. Now, remember, next week it's on Monday,
Yeah.
Tuesday. We just moved it because of the Memorial Day weekend. So we'll see you all next week. Take care. Have a good week. Be safe. Wash your hands. Wear your mask. Social distance. I want you healthy. Take care. Bye.
Nice job, Sandy.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Paul,
Thanks,
the wines next week are from the Margaret River, so a little bit of an emphasis on there would be good.
I saw that. So is it Vassar Felix or?
Yeah, Vassar Felix. So
Vass Felix, yes, great winery.
yeah, absolutely. You know, some of my favorite wines, not only from Australia but anywhere in the world. The Vassar Felix Compality, their top wine, which we won't be tasting, we'll be having their premier cab, is as close to Mekong
Love
Rock
Margaret River.
as I've found from anywhere in the world. A woman winemaker, Virginia Wilcox, she was Australian Winemaker of the Year. Those wines are off the hook.
Great. Well, you've convinced me. I'll have to go to the bottle shop and buy a bottle for next week.
All right.
He's going to hold you to it. 10 o'clock in the morning.
All right. It's just a sip. It's just a sip.
All right, guys.
I take a sip and then
Thank
you can
you.
have it for dinner later in the day.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Great.
Everybody.
All
See you
right.
later.
Thank you. Thank you all. Happy birthday, Roseanne.
Yes, happy birthday, Roseanne.